Assalamu alaikum, family. Happy Saturday. You're tuned in to the Sajdah Morning Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Sajdah Wendy Muhammad, and we're going to be back. We're just going to chat. I want to talk about confidentiality today. All right. So be a friend, tell a friend, and we'll be right back in a few.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee. And he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee. And I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who in my judgment is the master historian, taught us that of all our studies, history is the most attractive, and it is best qualified to reward the researcher. History is most attractive. Why should history be most attractive? Because history is the recorded time of the human family in its struggle to overcome obstacles. There is no life that is without struggle. The Holy Quran teaches us that man, meaning man and woman, is made to face difficulties. And after difficulty comes ease. But it is history that guides us through difficulty. For if you know how people who had difficulty yesterday got through. And if your difficulty is somewhat similar, then today we also can get through if we follow the guidance of history. This is why Carter G. Woodson and many of our black giants fought for black people to know our history. Because in not knowing our history, we don't have a guide. And without a guide, we are lost. No wonder the Bible...
Assalamu alaikum, family. Peace be unto you. How is everyone doing this morning? It's been a long week for me. I did get a little rest yesterday. So I actually was excited about that. And today, this morning, I'm hydrating. So I got water. It's good to hydrate after Ramadan, right? I want to talk this morning about confidentiality. I didn't put a little moniker up for the show today. So, whoever's here is here. I'll go back and do that and add it. But I thought about it with respect to so many of us going into business, and there's just certain interpersonal things and ways in which we should conduct ourselves. And I'm all about us conducting ourselves with class. And some of us lack class. We're so tacky and so low class. And one of the signs of that is when you just talk too much and talk everybody's business and you don't maintain confidentiality. And I said, you know what? I said, maybe we don't really understand the importance of it. And we're just kind of following what social media and all of that has told us is cool. They like, oh, no snitching and all that. Well, snitching ain't got nothing to do with if you ain't did no crime. But it's interesting how I see adults who adopt these mindsets that you see in the pop culture arena. I won't even call it Black culture. It's really the pop culture that they've popularized. And I see us doing it, whether we equate fashion with what we see in pop culture. So you got grown women dressing like strippers and hookers, thinking that it's fashionable. Like you go to any type of dressy affair a lot of times, and it's like, well, where do they think that this is classy? Like where's your debutante? Where's your class? But you don't have that. And then you have men who see what they're dressing like in pop culture and go, oh yeah, I'm going to wear that too. And so that whole idea of us creating our own style and our own vibe is only to the extent that we can put together clothing pieces that are in the pop culture. Then there's the whole idea of talking too much, slack talk, gossip. We have rules on that in the Nation of Islam. And then there's confidentiality. Do you know that if you are not capable of maintaining confidence, that it says a lot about you as a person and your level of class? Granted, you may have your confidant, your person that you speak to, that you talk to about things. But I think that we should be really mindful of confidence. Some of us have gotten to the point where, again, the operational style of pop culture has crept into our everyday lives, right? Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shabazz. We're talking about confidentiality today, right? So as you know, in healthcare, we know a lot about that, but I'm talking about it on an interpersonal level and how it really adjusts and makes you appear to be classless when you don't have the ability to maintain the confidence of others, whether that's in your workplace, no matter what. So I just want to talk about that today. I took a few notes, and I was saying that the operations of pop culture have crept into our everyday interpersonal operating system. What do I mean by that? Um, you know how in pop culture we judge something based on likes, based on popularity, based on followers. And so there's this drive to find sensationalized information, whether they make it up or not, and put it out there so that they could get more likes. They could create what they call clickbait. And a lot of us are now at the point where we do that in our lives. We want to be the one with the info. We want to be the one with the 411 with the T. We want to be the one with it so that we get the most attention. Meanwhile, we're not thinking about the person on the other side whose confidence we're violating, especially when you're dealing with somebody that has to navigate through situations strategically because of something that they do, either because of their job or the project they're working on or their business. It's interesting how when you violate their confidence, you're impacting oftentimes their ability to strategize and negotiate and even navigate through challenging situations. And so I was thinking that maybe if we break it down a little bit, some of us will get it and we'll raise our awareness. You know, I'm all about trying to operate in a space of excellence and happiness and peace. And so while we're judging things and we go, okay, let me see how many people know about it. Let me see what the likes look like. And so it's interesting because I can tell when people come around different projects or things that I'm working on, I can tell what people are saying by what they say, right? And there's an element that you forget that I think we all should be mindful of. I was talking to somebody about this podcast and podcasting and how in 2005, I started blogging and writing things down. I was working in the consulting big time. And I was still in that phase where I was fighting my sensitivity. And so as I was trying to figure out how to navigate, things, and it was before I started going, wait a minute, my sensitivity is a gift. There's a reason why I can be on the other end of a conversation and hear things and see things. Sometimes you might be telling me something or having a question and you're asking me a question and I literally can visualize the answer. Sometimes I can sit on the other side of a boardroom table and see things and strategize in ways that other people can't. And I started equating that with my high levels of sensitivity, which as a child I hated. And up until, recently as an adult, I struggled with it. I'm like, and so I started taking emotional intelligence classes, thinking about our study guide, right? Rising above emotions into the thinking of God. And I was like, okay. And I became a certified emotional intelligence coach. I started doing GNOS, NLP evaluations, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And it clicked. Things start clicking into place. But what I realized that in order to be a classy person, it's not just about how you dress. It's not just about how well you do your work. It's about how well you maintain confidence and can you handle information? How do you deal with information that's coming to you? Because we're in an information society now. The information is the currency. But how do you and I, who have not been trained on how to deal with the massive amounts of information that we may have, whether we get it because we're finding out on social media things. Some of us are starting to get information as we develop spiritually. So the question becomes, what do we do with that information? I remember sitting in the mosque way back in the 90s, and I was thinking about my grandmother. And she was she was a seer. She was basically like a psychic Creole woman. She could tell you everything about everybody. Even if she didn't understand it, she might explain it in a weird way. But my opinion, what I felt about her was that she was mean with it. Like if she saw things about somebody, she didn't care if they was a child or whatever. She would just say it, and I would cringe. I would sometimes feel like it was mean. And I asked Allah, I said, Allah, if you start giving me that kind of information, I promise you I'll handle the information with care. And that was a prayer I said way back in the 90s. And even in Maryland, when we were building the hospitals and the clinics, you know, in DC, you get all kind of customers and all kind of patients, all kind of people that come in from, excuse me, from politicians to critical people in government. This is why I said I need to hydrate today. And you had to learn how to maintain the confidence. You had to learn how to make sure that you weren't gawking because a certain person of a certain stature came into your facility. You had to make sure. And so I started being mindful of how I handled information. Whether it was information that I read, information I saw with my eyes, or information that just came to me that was downloaded. We now have to start being mindful of how we handle information. And just because you receive it through intuition or psychic ability, or just because you receive it because you've become really good at mathematical problem solving and you can learn how to put things together, just because you receive it like that does not mean that you abuse it. And so your class levels, your ability to be seen in a certain light has everything to do with your confidentiality level. I saw Dr. Sophia put in here, she said, if you tell me other people's secrets, I don't trust you at all. Envious people tend to do that a lot. Exactly. If you tell other people's secret, and one thing about me, people will tell you, I'm like Fort Knox. I ain't got nothing to say. And I will, even if a person comes to me and asks me about your business, I'll throw them off. I'll tell them something else. And then I'm going to let you know that the person was asking about your business. Thank you, Dr. Shabazz. This is Dr. Sophia Shabazz. Y'all probably have seen me repost some of her. She makes some really cool videos that you all gotta check out on Instagram. She's on Final Call Radio with her healthy moments. And they're so good because, Dr. Shabazz, I was going to tell you this, that they're good reminders. You know, we always need a little reminder, right? You were talking about sugar yesterday. And I used to walk around the hospital and say, that sugar is the devil. And I just could not believe the things that people had to deal with because they really was just addicted to sugar. It was worse than drugs and cigarettes and everything else. But that sugar is the devil. And it's on very rare occasion that I deal with it. Some people just go, well, I just got a sweet tooth. Having a sweet tooth for that refined sugar that's going to do all those things to your body. And I used to always tell people, I say, why don't you come volunteer with us for a day? And you'll see why that stuff needs to be stopped. So thank you for the healthy moments, the tips that you give, and thank you for the super sticker. Really appreciate it. All right, so now let's break down confidence. We're talking about having class. We're talking about being able to be trusted with information. See, how can God trust you? Oh, it was Brother Saad's idea. Okay, praise be to Allah. Final call team artistry. Praise be to Allah. It was beautiful. I think it's a great, 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 great reminder. And we need it. And I know from people like myself, you know, I'm not a medical doctor, so I got into healthcare on the development side, but I was always quoting the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We'd be sitting there, I'd be like, well, you know, the messenger said this and that, and this and that, and this and that. That got me in trouble when the house came up for sale because my business partner was like, you always talking about the messenger said this and the messenger said that. But it helps. It helps when you're in those environments, because oftentimes what's missing is just the lifestyle piece of it, right? The things that people do on a day-to-day basis that they really should be mindful of and understand is contributing to their condition. So thank you to you. Thank you to Brother Saad for that. And thank you to the Final Call team for putting that together for you all. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I cannot wait to call you into the How to Eat to Live kitchen. We shared about it a little bit. Let's talk about confidentiality, though. I'm about to start talking because I get fired up. I love doing things that make me happy. I was going to say before, I was talking about this podcast. I started blogging back in 2005. Then I started doing Blog Talk Radio, and I've done this for years. I was on radio in DC for 6 years. After the pandemic, I came back to Chicago and started doing my own thing. And I do it because I love it. I don't do it for the likes. I do it because I love it. I do it because I've been so blessed with information, whether it's through experiences, whether it's through downloads that I get. I call it my downloads from the universe, whether it's through my studies. But especially my life as a business consultant has blessed me. And I want to share the information because I feel like a lot of the information that I was given access to as a professional consultant, a lot of people going into business don't know. And can I say something to us as Black people? Stop opening bakeries. We got enough. I know everybody can bake. I know everybody got their signature dessert. But it's almost like every time I see a new Black business, or you all call me and you say, hey, you know, can you help me with this system, or help me get more customers? It's a bakery. I'm at the point now where I don't even want to smell it. Listen, this sugar is killing us, as Doctor said. But let's talk about confidentiality. Here's some notes I put together. Confidentiality is crucial for building trust, protecting sensitive information, and ensuring ethical and legal compliance across various contexts, including healthcare, law, business, and research. Okay. Confidentiality, crucial for building trust. Let's talk about that trust piece. Because I know I do. I want to be special in God's eyes. I want God to trust me and say, hey, I can give you this information. I want him to know that I can handle it. If you put me on your corporate boards, which I do a lot of business advisory work, your secret is good with me. This is just something that I've been trained in as a professional. I remember Sister Sophia that worked at the palace many years ago when we first started working with her. I remember her saying, listen, she gave us a whole lecture about confidentiality. You see, but you don't see. You hear, but you don't hear. You get no information out of me about dollars, numbers, nothing. I had learned the importance of that in public accounting. And when you go into the consulting world, I had a marketing person who was talking to me about websites and things like that. And one of the things he was saying to me, he said, I think you should post more of your interaction and stuff with your clients. And he kind of gave it to me kind of raw. He was like, because everybody talks about how, you help them with this aspect of their business, and you mention how you work with this client and that client, but I never see anything on social media. I was trained as a consultant. You don't tell folks business. You don't go from one client to the next client and tell that client what's going on with that person's business. You don't give up. You could be letting go of trade secrets by doing that. Just because you think you run in your mouth, you might be telling them something that can put them in an advantageous or a disadvantaged position with another client or a competitor. So you won't see me do that. I'll post if my client posts something, I may repost it, but I don't post like, that I'm going to their office or talking to them about that. I rarely post from meetings that I go to. You don't see me like doing videos where I'm walking in the client's office, like, come with me. Because it's confidentiality, and information is proprietary. And so I learned very, very early on. And so as I elevated and navigated in my career, people would bring me on into some really confidential and heavy corporate situations, because even just looking at my social media, they could tell she ain't gonna say nothing, or they would test you. And so being in the industry that I'm in, I understand it's almost like being in healthcare or law or business. You don't tell people's information like that. You maintain the confidence. And believe it or not, to people who know how to put things together, you saying those one or two things about your client, about your business, can be enough of a piece of a puzzle for somebody to put together some information that they was trying to get on that person. Okay. So, and sometimes we fall into the trap where we talk too much, right? I remember one time the minister chided me and told me tighten up my circle, because I just had started to have too many people come around me, and I'm sharing with this person and that person. And I was doing too much, talking too much. Sometimes when you're trying to figure out something, you need somebody to talk to, but I suggest you find one or two confidants that you can trust. And after that, you better just sit down and be talking to Allah. That's what my grandmother told me. Get upstairs and go talk to Allah. And I've heard that level of wisdom for a number of senior advisors in my life. Look, go talk to Allah. I've even asked the minister a question before, and he's responded to me by saying, "Did you talk to Allah about it?" One time he said, "Did you talk to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad about it?" So always pushing me back to the source, pushing me back to the originator. And so I nurse on that. I'm a big time nurser on that type of thing. So even when you bring your confidential information to me, I'm able to run it through a database, and even oftentimes receive certain downloads that you can be certain that I'm going to handle the information in a certain kind of way. I want God to trust me and know that information that he gives me, I'm going to handle it with care and the right way that he may want me to handle it. I want you to know, when you invite me into your board, when you bring me in as a crisis manager, when you bring me onto your ideas, you don't have to worry about, I don't run out and go steal somebody's idea. And I have people that do that with me. They'll come and sit down with me and say, you know what, I had this idea too. And I already know what that means, that they wish they could do it, or they're going to go out and do it. But I don't do that. And I sit down with people who have some really multi-billion-dollar ideas. Some of them they never do. But if it's their idea, then it's their idea. Now, there are times when people get the same idea, or people in the same industry. If we both making earrings and we decide, I'm making something and it's similar to yours, that's one thing. But confidentiality is going to determine whether or not you can be trusted, whether or not you can protect sensitive information and be a keeper of secrets, right? It talks about that in the Holy Quran. And whether or not you can help to uphold and ensure ethical and legal compliance. Now, let's talk about this in industries. We all know that in healthcare, there's HIPAA laws. Patients must trust that their medical information will be kept private to feel comfortable sharing details and seeking help. And if you are a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you also know that healthcare, you don't have to be a follower to know this, but we've been specifically taught how there have been times throughout history where healthcare has been weaponized. So a person's health condition, when they have big enemies, is oftentimes weaponized. So if your enemy was to find out that you have certain healthcare weaknesses, that may be how they kill you. That may be how they impact your ability to produce, is by coming through your healthcare weaknesses. So confidentiality in healthcare, and this is not just for healthcare professionals. This is for people like you and I who may find out that a person has certain healthcare challenges. You don't tell that. When they're going to the doctor, when they're going to have this procedure, where they're going, you don't do that. We know that Yaqub and his nurses were pushing pins in the babies' heads. And when you go to the doctor, I used to have I don't do this anymore, but when I was working more heavily in healthcare, I had a consulting business that we had that operated out of the practice, where we would get people who would come to us because we were vascular surgery, and they were very advanced in their deep disease stages. Most of the time we were like their third or fourth opinion. And at that time in DC, there just was not a lot of vascular surgeons to go around. So, when you're dealing with a diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you're going to get people who are vasculopaths. And oftentimes the families didn't know how to navigate the hospital system, and they almost needed an advocate. And so we would provide these advocacy services for our patients, because obviously we just see them for surgery and then they have their follow-ups, but the advocacy was very important. And so we created a couple of things out of that advocacy. One is to help people figure out how to navigate so that they can stay safe in a system that is very confusing and oftentimes challenging, and they know when to. So here's the thing. Most people base their healthcare regimen on what the insurance company will pay for. And oftentimes, especially when you get really, really sick, that is very, very limiting. And so learning to show people when they needed to go further than that, like, hey, here's this opportunity. You could go to Thailand and get this procedure done, or you could go to Texas and get this taken care of, or hey, go to China and get you some stem cells, whatever. But showing people the full plethora of healthcare options that may extend beyond their insurance became very important. And we even had a large contingency of people from the Asian and Pacific Islander community who would just come to us once a year and get diagnostic reports. And they wanted to create like this membership where they would just come and say, look, we want our CT scans, we want our ultrasounds, we want to do everything, we want to see what's going on, and we want to report at the end of it, and we can take wherever we want around the world. Oftentimes when you travel around the world with healthcare, I've seen it in Africa, I've seen it in a lot of other countries, you just can't figure out what's wrong with you. And so being able to come to a one-stop shop where you could get all of your radiology reports, your labs done, and leave with a full, complete workup, then you could take those documents to any place, whether you're traveling globally or not. But this confidentiality thing became really real even on the business side. So we stopped reps from coming into our space without permission. They only could go as far as the lunchroom if they wanted to bring some food. But we didn't let them come into cases and see people, because this is confidential information that they're utilizing and taking back so that they know how to sell more medical devices or create more medical devices. So it's not just the healthcare workers that need to be maintaining or need to be HIPAA compliant, but it's people like you and I who may know things about somebody and need to understand how oftentimes weaknesses in this predatory capitalistic system that we're living in can be weaponized against you. And Yakub and his nurses taught us that. Okay, let's talk about business. We talked about it a little bit. Confidentiality agreements ensure that employees and partners handle business secrets responsibly, fostering trust and protecting secret interests. This used to make sense years ago because there were things called trade secrets, and there was not the internet, and there was not the compensation for information that's out there today. But nowadays, even though a person may sign a confidentiality agreement, even though a person may have a trade secret agreement that they sign, that and a lot of times included in the NDAs is information about sharing of trade secrets, people do it anyway. And in a lot of cases, because information is moving so fast, there's not a lot you can do about it. So a lot of people think that an NDA is going to protect them. And it's like a locked door, right? A locked door is good for an honest person, but not for a thief. So if a person is not feeling like they need to maintain your confidence, or it doesn't matter, information travels so fast, by the time you put it out there, somebody else done said it, or it done attached on to some other information, and it may have come from something that you had somebody sign an NDA for. So my thing is, prior to even signing the NDA, you should have layers and concentric circles of people that you work with that help, that you know can maintain different levels of confidentiality. So you may have certain levels of information that you tell certain people, and certain things that you don't tell other people. A lot of people, they're operating in their ego. So they're always reacting to information. So they hear that you said something or did something, or that you're going to do something, or you have this idea. They automatically run it through their filter and say, how does this impact me? And you may have never said you were going public with it, or, maybe you are, but it's going to be in a certain kind of way. Then people start strategizing. This is why you don't run your mouth. Because then that other person that you just told, who you think is maintaining confidentiality, could be another doctor, could be another lawyer, could be another business person, could be a teacher. Now they're strategizing based on how the information you gave them is impacting them. I hope this is making sense to you all. That's the business side of it. And I cannot stress to you enough, stop weaponizing these NDAs and thinking that as soon as you get on the phone with somebody, you're going to make them sign an NDA, and that's going to stop them from talking. And stop thinking that if they do talk, you're going to be able to do something about it. Because like I said, information travels so fast, it's almost impossible, especially because you might not be maintaining your own confidence. It's almost impossible to prove that this person is the source of the leak. Because 9 times out of 10, you done told some other people. You got some other people that you have confident, that's your confidant. Your confidants got confidants. And so the information's already out there, but don't think that just because you signed an NDA, that it's not going to get out there. Information travels fast. The horse probably left the barn a long time ago. but you are only going after people that you know. That's a whole nother conversation. We started talking about trade secrets and rights to things like image and likeness and all this stuff. People tend to only go after people that they know. But the people who put it out here in the zeitgeist, they can't figure out where the source is. They can only go after the ones that they see. So I tell my clients, yeah, we need to have a strategy meeting, but let's find the right people so that we can limit that strategy meeting to a certain number of people. If you're going through something personal, something with your business, stop telling everybody and be mindful who you talk to about it. Because that person that you talk to about it is going to be responding, especially if they're not a high-level individual like we're talking about. They're responding to the information that you give them based on how it impacts them, how it makes them look, how it makes them look if you're working with them, how it makes them look if you are on their staff. That's how they're responding, not looking at it holistically. We tend to be very selfish and very amateur when it comes to information. And so what this is designed to do is to raise our proper handling of information skills. That's a whole class, right? Proper handling of information. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Let's see. Research. If you're in the research field, if you're doing some kind of research, if you're participating with a company that's doing research or beta testing, anything like that, you should be maintaining confidence. Okay. You shouldn't just be talking. You will not sit down with me and hear me saying, oh, I work with this person. If I say that I'm working with a client on XYZ and it's some information that I'm using to contribute to a conversation, I will not say the name. I won't even say if it's a he or she. I'll say they. Okay. Let's talk about protecting sensitive information and preventing harm. Personal information. Okay. Maintaining your personal information and keeping it private is critical. Confidentiality protects individuals' privacy and prevents the misuse of sensitive data, such as medical records, financial information, or personal details. Things that are going on, your criminal record, your financial information. Discussing, I was doing an interview the other day, and not the other day, but a couple weeks ago, and they said they wanted me to break down, all of the money and the different vendors and stuff like that for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House. And I said, I have no reason to discuss that detailed information with you. See, sometimes you just don't need to talk about it. It's not that you're hiding it or that there's any kind of issue with it, but why do you need it? And why do you want me to break it down? This was a reporter who asked me this. And as I will also say this, as you elevate, you're going to gain access to different types of information. You're going to see different things about people, and you should maintain that confidentiality. Business secrets. Maintain confidentiality, safeguards proprietary information, trade secrets. We talked about that. Confidential business strategies, preventing competitors from gaining an unfair advantage. You have people out here who are strategists. I've earned a living as a strategist. And I can look at something on television. Everybody freaking out because yesterday there was this big round circle where the president was pointing at different people saying he made 900 million. He made such and such billion. I already knew that was going down. I saw it. I saw it with the pandemic. I remember somebody came in my office and they were talking about, I said, this is a heist. And just now with everything with the tariffs and everything, I just told somebody the other day, I said, this is a heist. I said, it's a whole heist. I was in China and I realized that we don't make a daggone thing in this country. Not the I can't even think of anything I'm looking at in this room, from the table to maybe the artwork, because it's Black art, but the materials that the art is made out of, we don't even make in this country. We can't afford to cut certain people off. This is a heist. We don't pick up something and look and see. I'm facing my kitchen, from the refrigerator to the cabinets, to the dishes in the cabinets, to the lights, to the sink, to the stoves. We don't make none of that in this country. The batteries, we don't make none of that. I've been to the Samsung plant in Korea. We don't make none of this stuff. We don't even make the paint that is paint. We don't make the paper that we printing on no more. We can't afford to cut these people off. This is a heist. But when you're responding emotionally to information, you can't see that. That's why I said be mindful about always processing information based on how it's making you feel or how you think it's going to impact you and your situation and your circumstances. The way to operate as a as a person and operate beyond your intellectual capacity is everything ain't about you. And every time the bell rings, it's not your fight. So you can't always react based on what you think. You just can't do it. If you do that, you're gonna be limited and you're gonna stunt your growth. Okay? Because information comes to you and you have to have discernment on how you see it. Now, if you do have your own, let me say this, let me help you out. If you do have information that comes to you, you can react, you can figure out, what does this mean to me? But then once you figure that out, set that aside. And then now start looking at it based upon different categories and how it affects different things. Somebody may tell you something about somebody important, and you react because you're like, oh yeah, I wanted to know that. I'm glad I needed to know that information. Now that you know that, okay, I'm glad. But how else should you be processing it? What else does it impact? How else should you be looking at that information? And did God give you access to that information for you? Because you get spiritual people who become very self-centered and very pious. Like, oh yes, I get information. I'm so intelligent. I know so much and I see so much and I'm so divine and I'm one of the, top people in the spiritual realm and da. But if you have your channels open like that, you should really be making it a habit of finding out why you gained access to the information, because it may not be personal. And one thing that I learned as I start to elevate in my spirituality, that the minute your ego gets in, the information stops. I could be in the middle of an amazing vision-like experience, and the minute I say that's my, or oh I want, or oh the minute I do that, choo, it'll shut down. So you have to practice removing your ego from the situation. So as you're getting this information, these visions, this data from the universe, from or interpersonal information from someone, you have to remove yourself so that you can figure out the true, not only figure out the true sense of why you're receiving it, but to also receive all the information. See, we miss it because we automatically start thinking, how's this going to impact my staff? How's this going to impact who I am? Or, yeah, I needed to know this. I can't wait to go out and be able to say in my talk that I know this or I could do that. You got to take yourself out of it. It's the same is true when you're doing preservation and historical work. You may have a narrative in your head. And when I'm doing it, I'm very conscious that my narrative may be incorrect because the gatekeepers of history have been, sorry about that. That's my alarm telling me something. I usually turn that off. The gatekeepers of history have been feeding me a narrative in an attempt to brainwash me, and in some senses, to brainwash me. There may be lies that have been passed down through generations, things that are just not true. And as you're researching the data, you got to remove yourself and say, okay, what am I looking at? What do I see? And let me just gather the data. And then you start to put the pieces together, and you have to work to do it mathematically. But you can't just assume that the history is the way it is based on what you think or based on what you were told. And when you do have to have those types of, I call them extrapolations, you note that. Here, I'm not sure why this or that happened, but this is what I'm thinking, or this is my sense. Okay. Proper handling of information. Okay. Social work, there's another space where confidentiality is important. People getting divorced, people having to adopt children, things happening. You want to maintain it for your clients, all kind of things. That's another space where we should be really mindful of confidentiality. We got about, I would say, 5 or 6 minutes left. Let me know if you have any questions. Put them in the chat. Let me shout y'all out here. I shouted out Dr. Sophia Shabazz earlier. I saw her pop on. Brother Lamont, I see you out there, dear brother. Good morning and walaikum salam. Happy Saturday. Hey, Mom. Happy Saturday. I see that. I think I saw Sister Monica on here too. I think I did. Let me go down. Yes, I see you, Sister Monica. Okay, and then what we got? 180 of y'all that don't want to be in the chat. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. YouTube says only one of y'all on YouTube, so I don't know how true that is. But let's see. YouTube always shadow bans and lies. Reginald Muhammad says, "Walaikum salam." Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Any questions about the basics of what we touched on? Y'all know the way. Sorry, the sun is coming in, shining on me. I love the sun. Y'all know my basis when I do these shows is really to raise awareness. Okay. And awareness is the mother of everything. So no, we're not coming on here dissecting and giving you all the details, but it's to raise your awareness. CDM says, ASA, find one spiritual HIPAA reliant person or confidant, being on the same spiritual wavelength. They both rely on Allah. Find your tribal person. Walaikum salam. I think I understand what you're saying, CDM. I think what you're saying is find one confidant, somebody that you can have confidence in, that you could talk to, but sometimes one person ain't going to do it, right? You may have things about business that you need to confide in a person who understands business. You may have legal things and you need to confide in somebody with a legal mind. So I think I understand what you're saying. Let's see. Dr. Shabazz says, what about when it comes to helping one another realize what we should be getting paid for certain services? The black hole of information keeps us underpaid. It is. But you know what the black hole of information is due to, Dr. Shabazz? It has to do with our worth. It has to do with us asking for what we're worth oftentimes. And a lot of times, especially those of us as spiritual people, I'm going to say this. You asked me the question, I'm going to answer it. This is what happens. Inside of our spiritual world, we're everybody's grouped together. So especially inside of the nation, you don't necessarily know what somebody's socioeconomic status is. Everybody's blended together. You may have somebody who's an officer who may not have knowledge about certain things that you have knowledge about. And then there's sort of this veil of shame that is oftentimes placed over us as professionals. I know when I first came in the nation, I had an really deep, extensive background in business and healthcare, and I would just kind of focus on doing my accounting work and focus on doing. But I knew so much about business development. I had so many amazing internships and things like that, and so because people may not be able to get a sense of your knowledge, they may only just use you for certain things. And so sometimes we play ourselves down, Dr. Shabazz. We play ourselves down because we want to fit in. We know oftentimes we're dealing with people who may not know certain things in certain professions that we know. They may not respect it. They may seek to kind of play us down a little bit. There's always this talk, who is this person and where they come from and how they know this or that. That's usually a lot of times born out of people who don't understand, and you may come with a background and information that they don't understand. And so I think what happens to a lot of us as professionals, we play ourselves down. And so we don't necessarily want to ask for what we're worth, especially when we're dealing with other believers or other people in an organization where that scenario fits. And I always say to my clients, because you're not the only person that has asked this question, it costs money nowadays to be a Muslim. It costs money to be in certain situations where you're trying to eat kosher and halal. It's much cheaper to pull up in the drive-thru at the local fast food restaurant. It costs money to wear these custom clothes we be wearing and buying. It costs money. You got to build a nation. You got to be nation building. You got to pay charities. You got to donate. You got to support. It costs money. And so people have money, and you can't be afraid to ask for it. And let me give you the contrast. In the general population, or what we may call in our nation the lost found world, people tend to be very classist. And so you don't see certain people at a certain class hanging out with people at another certain socioeconomic class. So because it's very class driven from a socioeconomic standpoint, probably until you get into family dynamics, you may have that. But because of that, because the people that graduated with you, your sorors, your people that you work with, you may hang out with other doctors or other business professionals or other lawyers. It's a classist type of world. And so your confidence gets built up a little bit higher in those kind of worlds because you're dealing with other people that are in your class circle. I won't even say at your level, but in your circle, in your socioeconomic circle. But when you come into nation building environments, okay, everybody's kind of blended together. And so sometimes we get a little shy about saying, you know, that information you asking me for free, I generally get $150, $200 an hour for. And so you don't want to say it, but you got to learn how to represent yourself based on the value that you bring to the table. Yes, the black hole of information does keep us underpaid because everybody's Googling, everybody's doing this and that. But you got to keep, because if people knew how to put it together, they would put it together. People ask me, they say, you know what? Why should I pay for your money psychology coaching? Because if you knew how to do it, you would have already did it already yourself. You're talking to me, you need help because you got blind spots, you need some help. So the services that I offer warrant me charging a certain amount of dollars because I'm giving you access to something either you don't know how to do or you don't have time to do. Right? So we have to just be confident in that. And then also be, I think, more open in our presentation about what we bring to the table. You're bringing, yes, versus somebody who's using AI or Googling stuff, you're bringing an education to the table. You're bringing a certain mindset to the table that knows how to put things together, as opposed to you and I just looking up going, okay, what is diabetes? Well, you could put the whole thing together. You could give us a nutritional plan. You could give us a lifestyle plan. You could show us how this is contributing to other risk factors. So while we might be struggling with diabetes, you got people that got high cholesterol. Well, what does that look like in your body? You can break all of that down and talk about the interrelationships between those symptoms that somebody who's Googling can't necessarily do, because they don't even know what question to put in the AI to pull out the right answer. So we just have to be more vocal, sis, about our strategic abilities and our abilities to put the whole picture together. And instead of talking about it from a healthcare standpoint, I could talk about it from a business standpoint. Yeah, you can look up how to do a financial model. Yeah, you can look up how to do a marketing plan or a communication strategy and all this and that. But do you have somebody that can come in and pull it all together and show you how to do it? And at the end of the day, if you could do it and if what you was doing was working, then it'll be working. So let's face it. If you could do it yourself, you'd have done it already. Does that help, sis? It's 7:01. I know we want to get out of here, but I want to make sure that I gave some perspective on that question. The beautiful sun is hitting me. It's like some birds flying out here too. Any other questions? Does that help? Did that make sense, sis, before we tune out? Sister Monica said a blessing being seen. It's you sure right, sis. All right, you guys. Thank you. You're well. Thank you, ma'am. So look, y'all, we got Black Opera in White coming up at the Elijah Muhammad House Museum. Give me a thumbs up if you'd be interested in attending. This is one of those things, Dr. Shabazz, where we're trying to figure out the cost and figure out what to charge. You don't always want to say, well, I'll charge this and then I'll make up the difference. You got to charge what you charge. So we're going to have Black, White, and Opera as part of our arts, culture, and civilization series. It's coming up on May 10th. If you're on our mailing list, you're going to be getting a save the date in the next day or so. I'm just running behind and getting my information out to the artist who's going to put the copy together. But Black Opera in White is coming up, and we're going to be talking about a musical journey through Blackness. So we're going to talk about, the theme is His Name So Sweet. That's actually a song if you know anything about opera, but His Name So Sweet. His name, Elijah, our friend, Elijah, our Messiah. His name so sweet. And so I just got something from that, but I'm not going to go into it because we got to get out of here. So His Name So Sweet, musical journey in Blackness, 3 to 6 p.m., May 10th. And at that event, we're going to be making a really amazing announcement. So we're going to be doing also some networking. So all of our Black Muslim businesses will be invited to come out and attend and also network. So y'all know the opera ain't gonna last 3 to 6 hours. So it may last the first hour and a half, and then the next hour and a half, you'll have an opportunity to mingle and mix in this sacred space and in this historic home. So Black Opera in White is coming up. So I hope you all will get your tickets per se. I hate that, get your tickets, but access your experience, okay? And we'll let you know how much it'll be to access the experience in the next day or so. Okay, family, love you all very much. Make sure you go out there, make a donation, support the movement, support the information. Sajdah Enterprises is the Cash App, or you can hit the super chat like Dr. Shabazz did if you want to, or you can go there. But support the movement. I want to continue to bring this to you. We're going to be doing some of these mastermind groups at the home of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So stay tuned for a mastermind class that we got coming up at the end of the summer. But our first series in the museum, and these series are designed to help us get these last few dollars together to finish the home. Let's see, I see somebody made a comment. Facts on that, holistic perspective. Thank you, sis. These last few events are going to be designed to help us get these last few dollars to complete the home. And we got some exciting. I'm trying not to talk about it. Let me get out of here before I say something, but I can talk about Black opera in white. Okay. So I'll tell you guys the artist. We're going to be doing operatic interpretation of some poems by Langston Hughes that talk about what it means to be Black in America. So we want everybody to come out. It's going to be fabulous. We actually are only going to have, I'm trying to figure out how to fit 100 people in there, but I know for sure it's going to be 50 to 60. So as soon as we announce, you better get your tickets soon, because it's going to sell out quick, and it's not really much I can do about it. We're not going to do it outside because we don't want to be so hard on the artist's voice, but it's going to be inside, but we are limited in terms of space. All right, family. Love you all. Peace and blessings. And inshallah, I'll see you soon. I'll put some reruns and replay some shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then we'll be back live Friday and Saturday. And I may find an occasion to go live on IG or Facebook this week as well. Okay, love you. Remember, it's not personal, it's vibrational. See you soon.